Welcome, everybody, to Zen Hustlers Balance Podcast. I'm Jared Brick, the creator of Zen Hustlers. We are a free resource community to support busy professionals, parents, entrepreneurs, founders, people who feel like they want to have a huge impact in their life and their work, and yet something's stopping them. It might be stress, overwhelm, anxiety, feeling like they have to stay in that hustle mindset too much, too often to really have that deep impact they want to have with their work. During COVID, we decided that we really wanted to talk to the people walking the talk. It was a great time to interview people, so we started the Balance Podcast. We had done some founder interviews, but really wanted to do a deeper dive with people as the Balance Podcast. So we feel like we found people who really walk the talk. They have found a way to incorporate through their lives balance of work, passions, life, culture, experiences that they love, and they have a really big impact with the work that they do, or that's their goal with the work that they provide and support others with. I've been through my own journey, and I'm no expert in this. I'm just a facilitator and a host here to bring you interesting conversations. Today, we get to talk to an old friend who has transitioned careers into a really exciting place. And I knew her back in 2015 and 16 before I moved down to Santa Cruz. We were both working together at a beautiful co-working space up in Oakland, California. She's now a digital nomad. Today, we're reaching her, I believe, in Southern California. And she has now started a marketing firm. This has been years now, not too recently. And she focuses on different type of psychedelics and ways and revolutionary experiences that people can have. And they does that through her marketing efforts, through lit marketing. And I want to bring up Kimberly Adams now. So welcome, Kimberly. Thanks for joining us today.
Oh, it's so nice to see you. It's been a minute. Yeah,
we've been a minute. I really want to see you in person. I don't know when that's going to be. We missed each other in Mexico, which I was really bummed at.
I know. It's okay.
Just didn't know.
Our paths will cross.
Yeah. So, two things. What did I miss from your intro? And what are you most proud of when you hear your intro?
Well, I'm a digital strategist these days. So I guess a marketing strategist. So I do all things. And I am proud of that. I'm proud that I got to weirdly bring in something that has been present in my life since I was very young. I am from Southern California. I'm here now, which is unusual because normally I'm not in the country. But it's amazing that my community has shifted enough that most 90% of my clients are in the psychedelic field in some form. And which when I was in college, I got a degree in psychology, and all my professors were the old trippers, and they all introduced psychedelics.
Where did you go to college?
Sonoma State.
Sonoma State. Okay, so North Bay. Yeah.
Yeah. And I just assumed psychedelics was a part of the psychology world because they all talked about, my neuroscience science teacher, they all talked about their LSD experiences. Yeah. Then I got out to the working world.
Welcome to go to college in California, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Not every school has that, by the way. I'm pretty sure not every school has that.
I was the first to go to college, so I was like, this is normal. No.
Yeah. Yeah. And you studied psychology, and then it's been a transitional, part of your career to come full circle and coming back into psychology through digital strategist and marketing.
Yeah, they're very correlated. But I left psychology because the only jobs I could get were in behavioral therapeutics, and that's not what I studied. I studied humanistic psychology. So I was like, okay, well, I'm out of this, and I studied business. And then and when we met, I had right in 2016, I think was when I went back to school for marketing, and now we're in 2024, and oh boy,
and Hustlers was born out of that experience. Was my transition from starting the company, the media marketing company, Brickhouse Media, and then transitioning that with my family and now my ex down to Santa Cruz. That was a really hard time for me. My relationship was falling apart. My work was shifting dramatically. I was trying to commute and keep it alive in the Bay Area and living in Santa Cruz. I'm living in this beautiful, beautiful place. And I'm like, wait a minute. This is not working. And I'm trying to keep the hustle mindset. I'm staying up till midnight and 1 and 2, working on my laptop, literally falling asleep at my laptop, trying to do shit at night. And I'm like, totally understand. Totally.
Yeah.
And I have a degree in sustainable business. And I'm like, I'm not taking care of myself. I'm trying to put it all in elsewhere. And it's all fallen apart. And that's where Zen Hustlers was born. I think you went to HustleCon back in the day. I don't know if you did. I went to it. We hosted HustleCon. You must have. We hosted HustleCon.
It was at the port. Yeah. I remember that.
I was in it. So when you hear Zen Hustlers, that's the part I was really in. And I was like, I fucking drank the Kool-Aid hard.
I think, you kind of have to if you live in California. You got to hustle here.
You got to hustle, but you got to
live in Mexico.
The other side, right? Yeah. You got to have the other side, right? So you were mentioning before our call, like, doing yoga today. So keeping yourself. So we'll talk about some of your practices personally. So tell me about your journey personally, whether career-wise or coming back into psychedelic alternative therapies. How did that pull back into your life so strongly?
So grew up in LA, had my own recreational experiences, didn't touch it for a very long time. I think the first time I returned to it therapeutically was 2013. I did my first ayahuasca journey before I had just gotten back to Oakland, I think.
For people, just give them, when you mention something like an ayahuasca journey, not everyone's what that is. No, it's fine. I know what it is, but not everybody does. Today's going to be a little bit of a 101 with some of the things you're mentioning. So yeah, like when you say ayahuasca journey, did you go to Peru? What does that look like?
I may not have done it legally. Of course I didn't, because I stayed in the States.
Yeah.
But no, it was actually in Santa Cruz, with a private underground therapist. Sure, we'll say that's what it was.
Okay.
There's still plenty of underground therapists these days, but I worked really in sales when you and I met, and then I transitioned to marketing, and I worked in tech marketing, and alongside that I had been working on my own journey of the experience of using different psychedelics. Ayahuasca is one of those. It's a combination of two plants that creates a very beautiful dreamlike state. But I started to explore that world while I was working in tech for the most part. And I stumbled into a community of people. We relaunched the Psychedelic Society of San Francisco. I did that with Danielle Nigrin. And she still runs it today. We kicked it off together. It was dormant for a number of years, but
still alive, right? Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's live kicking. Yeah, and
what were you seeking when you did that first Aya journey?
So my mother passed in 2011, and death is part of life.
A cycle.
Yep. And ayahuasca is known as the root of death, transition, bridger between worlds. Many psychedelics are that way, in different ways. But I wanted to know where she went. My naivete was like, I'm going to be able to go visit my mother. I didn't get to visit my mother in that trip, but were any of the ayahuasca trips that I did in the next 10 years as I continue to work with it. Yeah. But I got to settle up some of the emotions that were unresolved. It's always a process. But I also...
don't mind me asking, was that a sickness, a tragic death? Like, was there something around her death that you were really felt unresolved with, or just the time of it?
I mean, I realized, everybody dies, but at that time I was so like, no way, she was 64. Like, I got plenty of years left.
Yeah.
She got sick the New Year's Eve of 2010. She was hospitalized New Year's Eve. She was dead 3 months later. And it was, they thought she was recovering and she didn't. So it was pretty like, oh no, she's fine. She's recovering. And then.
Just a fast switch. Yeah.
Yeah. Heart stopped.
That's traumatic. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was really, I didn't get to say goodbye to her body. I didn't have, it was an empty urn that we had for her funeral because it wasn't even prepared yet. It was just what are we doing here?
So there was a lot of resolved emotional work there. Yeah.
Yeah. And ayahuasca is very gentle and harsh in a lot of ways to bring you into the realm of the dead. And I died in my first experience with reborn. I know it sounds like crazy to some people who are listening maybe, but like I like went completely out of my body and was like, oh, I'm dead. All right, cool. All right, that's what this, well, I didn't know that's what was going to happen today, but okay. And many of these, we term them serotonergic because they work on the serotonin pathways, things that involve DMT, which is what is the active component in ayahuasca. It's there's lots of pharmacology we can go into, but I don't want to muddy the waters too much. But basically, when I went to re-enliven the psychedelic society, got involved with a bunch of really amazing people. And we were all professional people who either grew, held, or distributed. I didn't distribute, but I grew and held substances that were illegal. And we thought, oh, we're in Oakland, California, home of easy peasy, cannabis, legislation. We just called those lawyers up and we said, hey, could we decriminalize psychedelics here in California? Okay, no. Okay, can we do it in Oakland? And they're like, oh, yeah, we can do it in Oakland. So we did it at the same time Colorado was doing it. Denver was doing just psilocybin. We did everything.
For those of you, psilocybin mushrooms.
Psilocybin mushrooms, yes. Yeah. Magic mushrooms, otherwise known as.
Magic mushroom.
Yes. And so we did everything short of, we were attempting to decriminalize all plant-based substances, including the coca leaf, which is what cocaine comes from, opium, poppy. We couldn't get those in the legislation, so we made it easy, and we did just plant-based psychedelics and included also LSD, which technically pre-lab comes from a mold called ergot, but it's pretty manipulated there. But we were able to decriminalize our legislation.
What was the goal of that for you personally? What was your goal? Was your goal to use it in therapies? Was your goal to use it recreationally? Like, what were you thinking when you were working on those?
I mean, it was kind of like, let's do this together. This sounds fun. Hey, they're doing it in Denver. That would be cool. It was so naive because we never wanted legalization. We just wanted to protect ourselves as professionals and know that you can hold personal amounts of these things. You can exchange them with no money exchange. You can gift. We wanted to create a space where people had more access. We never foresaw what was going to, come, which is
medicinal use or recreation. That's what I'm trying to understand. Like, what was the goal?
We were recreation, most of us, but in recreation, it's not the same as what you would consider recreation of alcohol or even cannabis for that matter. You don't walk around doing these things in your normal life.
I'm in spiritual spaces with leaders and healers and people walking you through your journeys and guides. And that's what I love about it, because it's really well managed. Not everywhere, but ideally you're doing it with a caretaker to, assist you through it.
Yeah, somebody who's been there before. Yeah. And if you don't, you get slapped around by these substances. They're not going to let you abuse them. I mean, you can try. You can go. I have tried. I have tried with the most valiant effort to be like, fix me. That's when you get your butt handed to you. Am I just cuss on your channel, by the way?
Of course. Yeah, these are adults.
Okay.
Yeah.
I won't be able to stop myself. So
I think I've already dropped one or two, by the way. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Don't stop yourself. This is really a fun, open conversation. This is a topic that we're really trying to support people with alternative therapies that they maybe haven't thought of, that they're going to now want to seek out. Where do I find these safe practices that I can experiment with and try new things? Most people are starting to hear about ayahuasca. They know about magic mushrooms. There's a couple of things they haven't heard about. Now, in the legislation, now MDMA is coming up, which is the derivative of a lot of people call ecstasy as a street name. So, like, what do you think these things treat the best? Like, what do you think these things really work well at?
So they're all insight machines, as far as I'm concerned. They do not treat, they do not heal. You are the only one that's going to heal it. Mm-hmm. It's not going to happen within the session. It's going to give you insight. And an insight I had during one of my ayahuasca experiences was I was a vegetarian for 20 years. Yeah. Worst possible thing I could do for my physical health, because I'm extraordinarily active. It was just something no, I can't. I have to just keep steadfast with it. I sat up in the middle of an Aya journey, went, I need a steak. And it was just like, you get these insights of like when you let, it's almost like when the veil is lifted and you let your system and your judgments kind of fall down, and you get like a clearer picture of what's happening in your world. Your body will speak, your mind will quiet, your heart gets an opportunity to come forward. Those are things that were not in my purview. I was very intellectual. I was very headstrong, as many people.
You weren't even looking for those benefits, let's say. These are benefits that came through the journey, and you weren't specifically going for that.
No, I was not. I was in pain. I was in a lot of pain. I didn't know how to shift out of it. And I thought, okay, one of my friends told me that she met this person, and I said, okay, I'll try it. And that transitioned into this legislation that's, last time I checked, 65 cities in the United States have used it. Wow. We've supported a lot of people to gain access. Yeah. And again, we never intended legalization. That's something that was attempted. MDMA was swiped down by the FDA this last week, saying, no, you may not use that for PTSD. Many people, the way in which legislation moves.
Sorry, repeat that. That was a quick little note. I want to just focus on what you just said, because that's really important. So a lot of people are dealing with PTSD from other way from veterans to abuse, a lot of different reasons why they were experiencing PTSD. So what just transitioned through the government? And I just wanted to make sure we understand that.
There was a study, and this is what I was going to say, like the way that legislation moves is they have to look at a very narrow window of a study. And so there were veterans that had PTSD that were given MDMA, which also known as ecstasy and many other names. It was to treat their PTSD. There was, yes, and there's a certain number of people who took it, and then the placebo and all the things, the way that we research everything these days. But it was there was some faulty aspects of the actual study itself, and that was primarily why the FDA said there's not enough data points that we can say, yes, this is something you can use for PTSD. And what currently is happening is that these things are Schedule I substances, which means they do not have therapeutic value. It was not an attempt to shift the scheduling. It was an attempt to offer it in a medically supervised experience. Yeah. So a licensed medical professional would be, or a licensed therapeutic professional would be able to, with a prescriber, offer this for PTSD. That was taken out by the FDA. They said, no, that's not happening. So, and there'll be many, many more attempts with many more substances. And if it happens, great. If it doesn't, it doesn't. I'm interested in people having access, whether it be illegally or, I just safely is the most important.
Yeah, I think safely is the key word there. Yeah. So if people are, we're not going to kind of recommend where to, but like, how do people judge safety? I mean, we've got teenagers who are trying to take Adderall and they're getting fentanyl. So how do we know what's in our drugs? How do we know what's in our therapies and our medicine? How do you know? Like when you go into this, what's a good validation point of like, is it past? Like, so how do you use to judge that safely?
So the psychedelic societies are a wonderful place there, all over the world. There's at least 100. I don't even know what the number is at this point. You're not going to be able to find the drugs there, but you're going to be able to find people or the substances there. Some people refer to them as medicines. I call them some.
There's about 3 things we're referencing here.
Yeah.
And they started as drugs, and then they became, psychedelics, drugs, then substances, now medicine. So and that's really important. Like that's evolved, that we're now calling it medicine and not drugs and substances and psychedelics. It's an evolving language as well.
It is something, it began as medicine, culturally, and many of these substances have cultural reference points. They've been pulled out, bastardized, used in different ways. This is the nature of Western culture. We try to just as the drug war did, anything that is prohibited becomes stronger and then gets tainted. We used to have morphine in cough drops before it,
Coca-Cola.
Coca leaves. I was in Peru last year, and I could buy coca tea in the grocery store because it's part of their culture. Very weak. It wasn't a pleasant experience. I don't. And personally, I just thought it was neat. Not I would try, and I was like, this tastes awful, and I don't feel good. But but it's available in a low dose. But the nature of the drug, the nature of making things prohibited, is it gets concentrated for more ability to move it further and faster. So you have to take that into consideration. Where do you know anyone who has experienced this particular lab substance? If you're looking at MDMA or you're looking at ketamine, not so much, though. That is a you have legal access in the United States in nearly, I think, all states. You'll be able to go to a clinic, but it has to be prescribed. Currently, there are no other prescriptions of these mind-altering substances in the United States, but you can go to Mexico. You can go to Jamaica. Psilocybin is legal there, and it's not even medically prescribed.
Would you call this medical tourism? What would you call it? Psychedelic tourism?
Yeah, I mean,
is that becoming a thing? Is that even a thing?
It absolutely is. Technically in Jamaica, for instance, it is recreationally legal, so you could go purchase it just like you could cannabis. So it doesn't require the medical piece. Okay. But there are certain ones. This is why I recommend psychedelic societies or other places where you're getting quality, non-biased opinions where they're not benefiting, because they're not allowed to sell in those rooms. They may be able to share their services, but they're not allowed to, do any kind of exchange of substance. So they're not. It's in their best benefit to say, I'm going to safely take you through this. And you can speak to other people who've worked with them. That's really key. And some of these substances like ketamine, you can go get in a clinic. MDMA, there are some contraindications.
Are there still kids doing Special K? Because it used to be called Special K.
Oh yeah.
And it's K couch. And so is that legal ketamine or what ketamine?
Oh no, that's illegal. Okay. So because you're not getting it prescribed.
Yeah.
But yes, absolutely. It's quite a bit more expensive than it was when I was a youngin' and using it.
Yeah.
But yes, you can still do it recreationally. It's still got an underground market, but there's an above ground market now.
What are people treating with ketamine right now that you're saying?
Oh my goodness. So drug-resistant depression was the first study that was very successful, and that has been a on-label prescription is if you have tried other drug interventions and they're not working and you are still extraordinarily depressed. The thing about ketamine is it's intramuscular or intravenous. So you're getting a large dose. It's a 2 to 3 hour experience depending on your metabolism, but you're doing it once a month. Very different than taking a pill every day.
Yeah.
And you're supervised in a clinical environment or in a therapeutic environment.
You've done both?
I have done recreationally. Yeah. I've sat in on ketamine experiences, both intravenous and intramuscular. I have spoken to people who, there was a woman, I was with her. She was pretty much incapacitated, didn't leave the house before her monthly ketamine treatments. She started to be a normal person again. There's huge interventions. PTSD is also off-label, I believe, at this point, but it is something that it's a pattern interrupt. That's really what it comes down to. Is it gives you technically ketamine is a dissociative, so it's not in the psychedelic class, drug class. Although psychedelic isn't a drug class, but it's a serotonergic is a drug class, but it's a classification people use. But the dissociation is you sit beside your emotional challenge and you can look at it objectively. You have a broader,
instead of being raptured in it, you can now have perspective on what you're going through, and that can be the clarity to go, oh, that's what I'm doing. Okay. Yeah. We do that through our meds work and Mankind Project. We gain perspective through our own story and through our own journey of oh, that's what I'm doing to myself. And that's just one path, So
altered states in any form. It does not have to be drug induced. Being able to see something from a different perspective, that's all you're after. And if you're I went to Jamaica. I had the pleasure of going to Jamaica, interviewing a number of people while I was there, in and outside of the medicine space. I have an interview with a woman who's kind of a cultural representative of Jamaicans. She, before going there, she said, well, she affectionately called us unmelanated white people.
What was that word? Unmelanated?
Unmelanated. We don't have melatonin.
Okay.
Melanin in our skin. Yeah.
Okay.
And
melanin, not melatonin. Sorry.
Yeah. Okay. But she said, you guys need to be hit over the head with things, with these substances. We don't. We have dance, we have singing, we have community. That was before she tried it. She tried some psilocybin between the time that I spoke to her then and then when I met her in person, and she's like, oh, I didn't realize. Well, that's really helpful. But it's that it is giving you another perception of your circumstance that otherwise, and you can do that through meditation, you can do that through community, you can do that through many, many means. You don't need a substance. However, you don't have a choice once you've ingested a substance to have an alternative experience of your day-to-day reality.
You're in it. Yeah. You're in
it.
That's why we call it a journey. That's why we call it a trip, because you're there. You're going.
Yes.
And we hope you come back safely. That's the whole point. But we also hope you come back with an experience, and so that you're different after. We want transformational difference after we come back. We want to see the world differently than we did when we entered it. And that's the goal whenever I've, explored and experimented, which has been not for a while. I think having children changes your perception on, where are they? Where am I right now? Are they safe? And I think that has influenced me to always be on as a parent. And am I available right now? So it's been limited in scope, pre-children, I'll be honest, mostly because of that. So we're going to take a short break, and then we're going to come back and speak more with Kimberly Adams. Hold on. Are you seeking more balance, finding your flow, creating space in your life to make clear and healthy decisions, exploring new practices and dynamic habits that will empower your life with purposeful energy? Drop into water with us, a live interactive event hosted by Zen Hustlers here in Santa Cruz, California, a place known for balance. Water is wisdom, transformation, energy, and reset, honoring the 4 directions in life to support you fully. Zen Hustlers is bringing together wise voices as engaging speakers on transformation, movement experts to share how they transfer and move energy, and live musical performances that align with our theme of water. Stay tuned for the updates and head over to zenhustlers.com to join the list and be the first to be invited. Drop in, the water feels great. All right, welcome back. We're talking about alternative and transformational psychedelic therapies with Kimberly Adams. Thanks for joining us. We've covered a couple things like ketamine, psilocybins, ayahuasca. Those are really 3 big ones. Talk to me about some of the other more niche therapies that maybe you experienced in different parts of the world.
Absolutely. So one that's near and dear to my heart is Iboga. Mm-hmm. Iboga is a master plant from Africa. And people might know it more, may have seen it in the news as Ibogaine. That is an alkaloid that's extracted from the Iboga plant. It is well popularized and documented as an addiction interrupt.
So if you're dealing with any type of addiction or certain addictions?
So it's been most publicized and most readily applied in scientific research to opioid abuse disorder, because and I'm not a doctor. I'm not going to make claims. Nothing.
Now, I was going to say, where's that disclaimer? We are not a doctor. We are not. This is for entertainment and educational purposes only. If you're seeking therapy treatment, please speak with your, prescribed, shaman or healer of choice.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Yeah. No, I did not. I was very careful who you're going to speak with. Yeah. But the word shaman in there, healer. What else? Yeah. That's great. You've had a lot of experiences.
Yeah. Good luck calling your doctor on this one. But some do. Some are aware. Iboga, it has a pattern interrupt that is so extreme, massive. So Iboga itself cultivates and really supercharges the natural amount of neuroibogaine that we have in our liver. And so you take what they call a flood dose, or you can take low and slow, which is over a course of a week or two. You're getting as much of the medicine into your body as possible. It gets then changed into neuroibogaine in your liver, and that sticks around for 4 to 6 months. So your liver is then your main detoxer aside from your skin. It's really clearing out so much in your system, and it continues to do so for 4 to 6 months, given, depending on the dose and depending on how clean you come in to the medicine. But and this is not a scientifically established fact, but what has been described to me, I've never used opioids, but those that have, they say that it resets the opioid receptor. So if you've been abusing opioids, we have natural endorphins that our body produces, but you blow those out by doing opioids on a regular basis externally. And so your body, even if you kick heroin, morphine, whatever it is that you're doing, you kick it naturally or just white knuckle getting it out of your system is so depleted that it doesn't have its natural defenses against pain. So you might be clean, but your skin hurts. Like, that's what people have described to me. So what the experience is that it has been reported to me, and I've witnessed many cases, is that people do Ibogaine or they do Iboga safely with a medical practitioner present, and I'll explain why. The end result is that they're physically clean, their body is purged of it, depending upon how much was in their system and what they came in with, but and they don't have the craving because their body is no longer needing it to deal. And it's really astonishing. Like I said, I didn't come to it with that, but I came to it with my own compulsive behaviors, my own, I had alcohol addiction earlier on, but I'd been sober for many years by the time I did Iboga. There's a reason we have addictions. And what is most tangible is there's something missing and you're trying to fill it from the external. And there's something, usually the connection that you had to another person or to just the world is lacking. And so you're trying to fill that void. And it's not like it's going to deliver it up, on a silver platter and then you do it once and you're better. It is that you have such an extreme interruption of that pattern. And it is, I will be the first to say, the first time I did Iboga, it was not pleasant. It is not a pleasant experience. Even though I came to it without any substances in my body, I didn't have supplements in my system. I take a lot of amino acid supplements.
The pleasant? Like vomiting, sweats, shaking? Like what kind of side effects?
Yes.
Yeah.
It does purge the system. Pretty gnarly vomiting.
I would call you a very clean living person. Yeah.
It's the vomiting. Yeah. The vomiting is not just physical.
It's emotional release.
It's like a lot of, I came to it with some pretty heavy PTSD, pretty acute PTSD. Yeah. And it was the mind purges, the body purges. It's a pretty intense experience. My understanding of it, and medical professionals, sorry if I screw this up, but my understanding is it blocks the experience of dopamine in the system during the time you're using it.
Yeah.
Just like Parkinson's. So you're actually shaking the whole time. Wow. And not everybody does, but I did. It lasts 72 hours, the experience, really acutely for about 20 to 30 hours. So it's not,
that's a long one.
It's a long time. You need a medical professional there because it is cardiotoxic. So if you have heart issues, you have to do a full 12-lead EKG coming into it before you can even be approved for ceremony. You have to do a blood panel. It's not a joke because it has killed people. And
I love how it's regulated, though. And I love how there's all this security precautions in place, hopefully. And it's
well,
yeah.
It's not regulated. It's just that people,
of course.
People who serve it understand that they're dealing with a substance that is not, magic mushrooms, psilocybin, be pretty hard killing somebody. It'd be really hard. Really, it is the only time people have ever injured themselves, or I don't even know if I could say that, point to any deaths attributed to psilocybin. It would be taking too much alone and making poor choices, not that the body shuts down.
Even that
that's
the body,
a very So lots of warnings there. Yeah. However,
you had a very extreme experience. It sounds like you came out of it. How did you come out of it?
I did two
through it. I should say. I love the word through.
Yeah, through is a good idea. I did 2 ceremonies back to back, so it's over 7 days because you're doing. You have a day off in between, and I came out with the clearest mind I've ever experienced. I've been meditating since I was 15. Like, the needle did not move the way it did after an Iboga experience. Even ayahuasca gave me a lot of emotional clarity. Yeah. But the clarity of mind was astonishing to me. And it is what they call a pink bubble for a little while, but you do have about 4 to 6 months of that clarity. And that's the gift of the medicine. You get the opportunity to make behavioral changes in your life. Mm-hmm. But if you just think you're going to come to it, be clean, and then go back to your normal life, you are incorrect. So it doesn't matter if it's a compulsive behavior or a behavioral addiction. You're not going to just, I'm done. Okay, great. Next. That's
like most things. Like most things, there's a habit, there's a practice, there's integration, which is one word I wanted to talk to you about. Like, a lot of people talk about the time of integration that you need to really, after these journeys, you really have to either work with someone or, have a practice for integration, because you're getting all this deep insight, you're getting all these transformational changes. Now you've got to integrate it back in your life. And that's why I want to come back to practices. So what are some things you do to integrate after these journeys?
So my first ayahuasca experience, I was actively drinking. I was an alcoholic when I knew you. I bet you didn't know, because I was very good at hiding it.
Well, it's all that high functioning. Yeah, very high functioning.
Yeah. High functioning. Let's
be honest here. If no one knows and you're showing up for work and we think you're productive and you're getting responsibilities thrown at you, I call that pretty high functioning. If you're not, like that, you're still walking through life that no one knows that you're doing all that stuff. And, I call that high functioning. You may not feel high functioning, but to the surface and to the community around you, Kimberly still got her shit together, man. And she shows up and she's a hard worker, and, she likes to drink a little bit and have some fun, but like, wow. I'm like, wow. Okay. So, because we've had other guests talk about this too. And it's a sad skill. Let's put it that way.
It is. Yeah. And part of that integration is coming to terms with the fact that you're a big fat liar to yourself. Mm-hmm. And you have to recognize where those things come in, where your ego is coming in. And there's a lot of people, especially in the psychedelic community, ego disillusionment, the idea that you're going to kill your ego. Well, let me tell you, I've killed my ego. I don't know how many times. It comes back, and you need it. You need it. You're never killing it. Yeah. You get separation from it, so that you can look objectively and say, I see where you're active. Okay,
and how does it operate?
Yeah. But the experience of integration, it is, my first ayahuasca experience, I was actively drinking, and I had to be sober for a week before, which was like white knuckling it, because she required that to be safe. I had to, I came out with this awe experience that I remembered what beauty was, which I had completely forgotten about. And that 2 weeks after, I was in one of the deepest depressions I could have experienced, because I couldn't get back to that beauty. And I didn't know how to get back there. I didn't have the skill sets to recognize it in my own world. That's what integration is that you get the insight, you get to see it, feel it, experience it, really live in it for a few hours. And then you come out and you have to figure out how to do it in your own life. And that's hard. Let me tell you got to stop lying to yourself. It's not the pretty easy, go meditate, go, have pretty yoga pants and go do yoga. No. It is dirty, icky, yucky, crappy work that is just facing your shit. Really.
What did that look like for you? Did you work with someone? What were some of the practices you implemented?
I'm very hard-headed, and I didn't like the spiritual mumbo jumbo, so I didn't work with the person that I had sat with because she was too spiritual for me. I needed more logistical practices, and I found those years later. Really, I mean, I kind of fumbled through it. I did ayahuasca for 6 years, still drinking. Like, I would have months off, and then I'd come back to it. Months off, I come back to it.
Yeah,
it is a pattern interrupt. But if you keep spending time with the same people, doing the same things, you're not going to change. So I had a pretty drastic change where I just got sick of it. Frankly, I read a book it's by Alan Carr, called The Easy Way for Women to Stop Drinking. Isn't that the worst name of a book in the world? But
I can't believe that was a successful book. I love that.
It's so good.
It's like Computers for Dummies. It's like, okay. Yeah.
Yep. It's a little skinny guy. It basically makes you stop lying to yourself. Do you think that your wine, because I was one of those, I was a wine drinker. I was a fancy alcoholic.
Yeah.
And so I love.
We're in California. There's a lot of wine getting drank around here.
Oh, yeah. It was the ritual of the wine glass when I got home. It was all of those things you have to dismantle. And basically it was like, okay, keep drinking while you read this book, but start to observe. Is it really that fancy because you're holding a pretty wine glass? Let's cut to you holding the toilet bowl. Let's see how fancy you are then, like really breaking down those lies that you're telling yourself. Yeah. And I just frankly got sick of it, and I couldn't do it anymore. It took behavioral change. It took some of that. I did go to some 12-step groups that weren't quite right for me. Yeah. And what I did was I went into the world of the 12-step and smart recovery through a client. Actually, a Ibogaine aftercare center reached out to me, which they're in Mexico, and they shared their practices with me because I was doing marketing campaigns for them. And I was like, hold on, tell me about this whole amino acid therapy you're using, because when you degrade your body to that point, you have to give it back. And I was a vegetarian for a long time, and I needed to eat meat. I needed to have these experiences of just giving my body what it needed and my mind what it needed. Yeah. And I also had to fess up to the fact that I needed help. So I did have some traditional therapy. Good. I had a lot of alternative therapies. Yeah. And I had community. That's a huge key. Yeah.
And that's bringing me back to, like, how did lit marketing come about where you started to focus on this and make this your work in the world?
So I was working in tech. And as when we did the legislation, then people were like, hey, you know about the psychedelic world. I'm trying to get this off the ground. Or, I just kind of casually would be like,
no, to some people in the community.
Yeah, I was like, marketing is marketing is marketing. Well, not really, because there's plenty of psychedelic keywords that you can't use. They're illegal. They're not going to be
banned on platforms. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's some tweaks and things that I learned over the course of casually helping people, then starting to take on clients. That Ibogaine aftercare center, I took them on 4 months before COVID. And then, nobody was going down there. So we had to do a bunch of content marketing in order to fill up their sales funnel to get to that point of when they could reopen. They would be open full, and they did. They opened full. And it was just a progression it was my own journey of going to these different substances, because I did start with ayahuasca. I am somebody who needed to be hit over the head. I am also a psychonaut. I've also done a lot of substances before that. I was like, I want to see this one. I want to see that one. What happens with this one? And so I've done over 15 different psychedelics. And I don't recommend that.
Directly to learn more about all those 15.
Yes. Yeah. It's a long list.
And would you say that you work in all those 15? Like, would you take on clients in all those 15 areas if they were to arise?
I could, and I feel okay about that because I've experienced them. And that I feel like, and this is a conversation for another day, but there's people who are coming into the therapeutic field that are coming from traditional therapy that are like, oh yeah, I can hold space for a person doing psilocybin or ketamine or what have you. Oh, have you done it yourself? Because it's not predictable. It's not something you can track unless you've really experienced it with yourself. So many people in pharmaceuticals would be like, well, I've never tried these substances. I still sell them or I still prescribe them. Well, this is one you need to know. You need to understand.
It's a walk the talk process. This is not I get it, I can do it. You got to really walk the talk in this one. And that's why I think I appreciate you. And that's one of the reasons why I'd want to bring you on is because, as I mentioned in the intro, like we want to talk to people who walk the talk. They haven't just thought about it. They've done it in their own lives. They've been through the challenges. They've been through the spirals of it all to come back and with the work that you do in the world. So what's a dream client look like for you right now?
I have some of them and I'm grateful for them. I've helped retreat centers. I do a background earlier in my life is in commercial real estate. So I've helped connect them to what they need to build their retreat center. But then I've done their decks, I've done their marketing. I love doing that. I'm now at the point where I'm expanding past the lines of psychedelics and moving a little bit more into longevity, because the thing that really, the core of why this is interesting to me is, like I mentioned, I came to Iboga with some acute PTSD. That is an injury to the soul, as far as I'm concerned. And some people, there's lots of neurological symptoms that come along with PTSD. There's behavioral symptoms. There's addiction. There's all kinds of. There's a soup that you swim in when you're dealing with that. But at the end of the day, you do have to change some neurological patterns through really deep soul searching. And I don't think that that's just a simple take a substance, figure it out. If that's 10%. And then you've got all these other things that you need to truly reflect. Is your life making you happy? And are you living a life that actually is one you want to live? Is it one that maybe other people might see your bank account and see all those things, but are you really genuinely happy? And it's not just drug intervention. It's really looking at some of the alternative ways that you can change the body, mind, spirit through old practices and some new ones. And so dream clients are ones that are a little bit more tertiary to the industry because I can make a bigger impact. I used to say if I could get access to someone in the middle of the United States to ketamine or psilocybin, where it changed the trajectory of that woman's children's lives, that's something that's worth it. Now I'm like, you know what? She may not need to do ketamine or psilocybin. Maybe she just needs EMDR. Maybe she needs, maybe she's in severe pain and that's why she's taking an addictive substance. Maybe stem cell injections are what she needs. I know I have a lot of injuries and that's what I'm looking towards. So it's been an expansion beyond past the limits of what psychedelics can do, but to look at, to be involved in an industry, to be with people who recognize these are just little glimmers. These are glimmers of insight of how to change your world, and different industries that support that mindset rather than pushing a pill. That's really what I'm interested in.
That's beautiful. I have two final questions and we're going to wrap up. One is, have you ever thought about becoming a healer yourself and supporting people from the practitioner side? Not, whatever that looks like, but has that ever been of interest to you?
Nope.
Got it. Good answer. I love that. Yeah.
I am a systems builder, not a practitioner. And that's a very different personality set.
Yeah. Reverse it. Yeah. Thank you. And then the last one is, what's something that drives you? What's your mantra? What's your motto that keeps you going, waking up in the day and going, how do I keep myself engaged and committed to this work? What does that for you look like or sound like?
Great question. you give me some really wonderful prep questions, and one that
I think it's one of them, by the way.
yeah. It's I define pillow bounce is the way that I define whether I'm really in a space of engagement with my work, engagement with my life, is when I lay my head down, I'm excited to get up the next day. If I'm really stoked about laying my head down and just zoning out into the dream world, there's something wrong. I love sleep. It's so great.
Yeah,
I love it so much.
it's the night, not the morning. For you, it's the night, not the morning.
Well, if I want the night only, then that's not good. Morning is my favorite time of the day. I'm an early riser. If I'm not excited to get up the next morning, when I put my head down to sleep, there's something going wrong. So the things that keep me engaged in that space is the potential of making a broader impact, the potential of I don't have children. I don't have a legacy in that way. I don't need to be famous. I never wanted to be. I'm like last person that wanted that, but like that understanding that this life meant something rather than just kind of blending in. I've never worked for corporations. Like, I mean, technically I've had clients that are corporations, but I've never been part of that model because it just doesn't fit for me. It's like, well, that's been done. What can we do next? Like, what is the thing that is changing things in this world? Because it's a beautiful place. It's a beautiful place, but I don't think a lot of people appreciate their lives in a deep way. And if I can do something that amplifies the voice of helping someone to find that, amazing. If I can educate on something that can help them find joy, amazing. If I'm finding joy, hallelujah.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. And today's really been about amplifying your story and your voice. So thank you for sharing it. And I just want to appreciate your transparency and your candor, because these are topics not for everyone that they are still learning how to talk about in the public space. So you've learned how to do that. And what we want to do is encourage more people to say, these are topics that we can talk about. These are things that we can bring up politically. We can talk about it too with laws and civically, and then also socially, community. It's usually where it begins there. And then you go, hey, wait a minute. I want my whole community to experience this and not have a roadblock to that. So thank you so much for being that voice today for people. And so how do people follow up with you? Where would you like people to follow you and learn more about your work?
I have a website, lytmarketing.co. I'm also, I'm on Instagram, but it's mostly my weird digital nomad experience of just
I didn't even get into digital nomad living, and that's been other past things. What's a quick digital nomad living before we check out?
So I've been fully remote for over 2 years and been to 7 countries. Hope to check off a whole lot in Europe and Southeast Asia pretty soon. The
Airbnb model. Which model do you adhere to? Kind of.
Yeah, I do. I like the life hack is I stay there for a week and then I reach out to the owner and be like, hey, all right, so if I give you cash, what do we do here?
There we go.
But there's also there's other wonderful ways to do it. House sitting is an amazing way to live in different places in the world. And then you get like, I have a house sit that I have a 5,000
network for that. There's networks.
Trusted house sitters. You can get maybe get monetized by them. Great.
Cool.
But yeah, people give me their lake houses and I've got a 5,000 square foot mansion in LA that I'm going to stay in October. Like, it's bonkers, Yeah. So,
and how do you deal with, or just another follow-up quickly is community, like you're out of your community by moving countries all the time. So how does that work for you?
There's a beautiful community of people like me. There are. And
you find them quite easily.
I do. But I also, I come back to where I'm from. I come back and visit people, touch back in with people I knew from 2015, like yourself. Community is not, especially I think most people found COVID showed us that community can be anywhere. And that's a beautiful lesson from that horrible experience that we all lived through. So, yeah.
So if you have PTSD from COVID, you know now some tools that you can incorporate. So yeah,
exactly.
Coming full circle. I love that.
Yes.
So I want to end with you, this beautiful smile, and thank you again so much for your time. It's been really eye-opening. And if people want to learn more about the marketing of these things or your personal experiences, they can reach out to you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Jared. It was fun to reconnect.
Awesome. Thank you. We're going to transition here for 1 sec.
Bye, guys.
No, it's like here's someone who's experiencing overwhelm, PTSD, stress. There's lots of resources out there. There's lots of alternative things that you can do. Kimberly talked about a lot of them today. There's a lot of different things. We have a crisis page on our website if you're going through, crisis, and there's a hotline now. So if anything's like that for you, I'm sorry. We hear you. We've all been there, many of us, through this journey, and you do have support. You're not alone, and let us know how we can support you. So thanks for listening today. Thanks to Kimberly Adams. We'll put links to her work, and just keep on going. Don't feel like you got to do it all yourself, and you do have support out there, and we're here to help. Thanks all. Take care.